Welcome to a new story made by Oracle 1. Chrono Down. The world as humanity knew it didn't end with a bang, but with a glitch. The gleaming spires of OrbitCorp's Chrono Hub pulsed gently beneath the London sky, a beacon of the new age. This was the center of the world's first and only commercial time travel service, Chrono Commute. A promise that the past and future were no longer distant dreams but accessible destinations for anyone with the credits or courage. Since its launch 7 years ago, millions had traversed minutes, decades, even centuries. Historians had studied firsthand, thrill-seekers had chased hunters in the late Jurassic, and the wealthy vacationed sipping absinthe in Belle Epoque Paris or basking under Martian skies a century hence. And then it all faltered. At precisely 11:47 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on a chilly November night, every time portal globally stuttered, flickered, and went silent. Screens that once beckoned travelers with shimmering cityscapes and historical panoramas turned to static or error codes. The Chrono Commute network was down. Not scheduled maintenance. Not minor technical issues. Down. Like the heart of time itself had flatlined. For the billions who depended on it, the anniversary shoppers, the time tourists, the desperate who sought to undo mistakes, the nightmare began. --. I. The aftershock. Dr. Lena Morales gripped the cold metal railing of the observation tower at Chrono Hub, looking out over the sprawling city below where emergency signals erranted against the velvet night. As chief engineer of quantum systems, she had poured her life into the Chrononwave matrix that powered the portals. Her phone vibrated relentlessly. "Lena, status report." A voice crackled. It was Raj, her deputy. "We're dead in the water, Raj." Entire network collapsed simultaneously. Diagnostics hit a firewall, something external, maybe a cyber attack or a glitch in the core quantum algorithm. Raj's voice was tense. Thousands of travelers still out there on jumps, stranded. Thousands. More like millions. The news channels flooded with horror stories. People who had traveled from a few hours ago were now lost in medieval villages with little tech. Tourists in dystopian futures where AI warlords ruled. Families trapped in eras where hunted minorities barely survived. And corporate types stuck in prehistoric eras with nothing but their suits. The government declared a global emergency. International coalitions formed to coordinate rescue operations. But no one really knew how. Time travel was new, fragile, and uncontrollable. #2. Into the fractured past. Miles away in the dense English woodlands near Sherwood Forest, a man crouched low, heart-pounding. He was an accountant, Harold Finch, his smart wrist interface useless here. He had set out on a quick trip. Noon, 2024 to 1192 AD, intended for a brief historical survey. Maybe a few selfies with Robin Hood's merry band. Instead, he'd found himself abandoned. The glowing portal he had entered simply collapsed behind him. His interface flickered dead. No GPS. No contact with Chrono Hub. No way back. He was alone in a verdant forest with only ragged clothes, his city shoes unsuitable for trekking, and a head full of panic. Nearby, villagers eyed him warily. He tried to explain in his best old English, but it only sparked suspicion. Harold realized. To the people here, he was a strange man from the sky, a sorcerer, perhaps. As days passed, survival became a desperate puzzle. He scavenged, fought the cold, tried to avoid the local lord's soldiers. He had no idea if Chrono Hub was even trying to find him. #3. A future without dawn. Half a century ahead, the sprawling neon colonies of Neo-Sydney shimmered under acid rain. Dr. Sophia Ellison was an AI researcher who had intended to conduct a quick jump to 2100 AD to examine projected tech in person. Instead, she found herself stranded in 2500 AD, a bleak pit of decay and war. The world she landed in was nothing like the hopeful projections she'd studied. AI had fractured into factions, and humans were caught in a collapsing society on the brink of extinction. Sophia's initial shock faded into resolve. She commandeered ruined terminals, eventually connecting to the underground network of rebels. With her advanced knowledge, she became a vital asset. But the glimmering hope she once held, that Chrono Hub would come for her, waned with every passing day. ###IV. Orbit Corp's reckoning. Back in the present, Orbit Corp's CEO, Maxwell Thornton, sat in his glassy office, watching the news reports fill every screen. His company's brilliant, world-changing technology had failed spectacularly. Public outrage was swift and merciless. Lawsuits stormed in, and governments threatened nationalization. But Maxwell's own team uncovered something more disturbing as they pieced through the quantum data. The crash wasn't accidental. They found signs of a temporal anomaly, a paradoxical feedback loop, embedded punitively in the quantum code that powered the Chrononwave matrix. The anomaly was self-propagating, distorting temporality, trapping travelers, and corrupting timelines. Whoever created it had a purpose, and they had only just begun. ###V fractured realities. The stranded masses weren't just stuck. Time had started to fracture around them. In some locations, centuries merged. A medieval village might see sudden flickers of futuristic weapons. A future city could experience medieval-level technology bleeding through confused synths alongside galloping horses. People began reporting time phantoms, disembodied echoes from different eras overlapping the present moment. The fabric of time was warping at an alarming rate, and the threat was no longer just being stranded, it was being erased entirely. Lena and her team raced to stabilize the chrono waves. Using newly developed quantum temporal anchors, devices meant to lock localized time, they hoped to create pockets of stable chronology to protect those stranded until rescue missions could be mounted. But the energy cost was colossal. The global power grid strained dangerously. ###V. The source of the rupture. A secret underground facility beneath the Swiss Alps became the crux of the mystery. It belonged to a clandestine syndicate called the Eternal, a shadow organization opposed to the commercialization of time travel. They believed mankind was meddling dangerously with the natural flow and sought to reset the timeline. They had injected the anomalous code into Orbit Corp's quantum systems through an insider agent, a disgruntled physicist sympathetic to their cause, triggering the crash. The Eternal wanted to ensure that time travel ended before it permanently damaged causality itself. ###7. Unlikely alliances across time. Lena orchestrated a daring plan to open a temporal rescue corridor that could span centuries and retrieve stranded travelers in one sweeping operation. She reached out across timelines, coordinating with a group of survivors who had established contact through salvaged communications and encrypted messages. Harold Finch, now a town elder in his adopted medieval village, agreed to unite with Sophia Ellison's rebel faction in Neo-Sydney. Together, these disparate groups worked to pinpoint stable temporal anchors and send signals back to the present. Their collaboration across time was fragile, fraught with paradoxes and dangers, but it was humanity's best hope. ###8. Race against oblivion. The temporal energy required to power the rescue was drawing dangerously close to critical. A chain reaction could unravel the entire Chrononwave network, potentially wiping time station nodes from existence. In the final hours, Lena and her team harnessed every resource, quantum computers, solar arrays, experimental fusion reactors. They created the Rescue Corridor, a narrow, fluctuating rift connecting past, present, and future. The first travelers were pulled through, weak, disoriented but alive. The network began stabilizing as each rescued soul reinforced the temporal matrix's integrity. Warned by Sophia and the Eternal's infiltration, Orbit Corp agents confronted the Syndicate in the Alps. After tense negotiations and tactical compromise, a fragile truce was struck. Time travel would not be dismantled, but heavily regulated, overseen by an international coalition with strict ethical controls. ###IX. New Dawn in the Continuum. Months later, the Chrono Commute network cautiously resumed operations, with comprehensive failsafe protocols. Survivors held reunions, bonding over shared trials in time lost and found. Humanity had learned a bitter lesson. Time was a dimension not to be exploited lightly. The fabric of history and the future demanded reverence. Lena stood once more atop the observation tower, the night sky awash with stars and the occasional flicker of temporal trails as cautious travelers stepped once again through shimmering portals. The world was forever changed. Chrono Down was the tale of humanity's first real test in mastering time. Not just a technological feat, but a profound reckoning with the consequences of their ambitions. Like and subscribe for more stories.